And to kickstart this beautiful session, I'll be having Mrs. Adenike Labinjo. She's the Chief Operating Officer, Pinnacle Oil and Gas Limited. And of course, next on our list, I have Dame Winifred Akpani, Managing Director, CEO, Northwest Petroleum. Lawal Shade, Managing Director, NNPC Trading Limited. And of course, still moving on, I have James Gouda. He's the Vice President, August Media. Mr. Dapo Shegun, he's the Executive Vice President, Downstream, NNPC. All right, I have with me here also Dr. Jude Nwalune. He's a Managing Director, Rain Oil Logistics. All right, last but not the least, I have Mario Mendes, Refining and Refined Products Senior Research Analyst, Vito.
Good morning, everyone. Permit me to stand on existing protocol and also thank everyone for making time to be part of this session. I must say it is an honor to be here today. We have a total of about 90 minutes, 60 of which will be for the deliberations, and thereafter we'll go into the Q&A session. We hope to take 3 to 5 questions depending on the deliberations and the length of time we utilize in response to the questions. Our discussion this morning will focus on the African Fuels update. We'll focus on the overview of trends and market developments. The objectives of this session is to update the House and the continent on what is going on with African fuels, understand patterns, indications, current market activities, developments, and how these influence or should influence our daily business or economic decisions for the future. It should shed light on the aspects of fuels, especially transportation fuels, such as petrol, diesel, LPG, CNG, jet fuel or aviation fuel, and hopefully answer those nagging questions and enable better clarity of the dynamics that exist within our continent. I am expecting some more focus on gasoline, what we all know as petrol, as it remains the most widely used fuel for majority of cars and light-duty trucks that impact the common man. From the constitution of the panel today, NNPC plays an important role. We expect them to explain the patterns that we see today in the market using Nigeria as the case study. Technically, NNPC is currently the sole importer or the supplier of PMS in the country. I heard an interesting phrase yesterday that said, subsidy is gone and still not gone. Also, the authority chief executive informed us here that of the 94 import licenses, and this was yesterday, of the 94 import licenses granted to the wholesale suppliers of PMS in the country, only 8 of them were able to import product between June and August, and this volume amounted to about 120,000 metric tons in total. And if you compare this to the average monthly import of about 1 million or 900,000 metric tons monthly, it only represents 4% of total requirement over a 3-month period. In that time, NNPC has successfully and continually sustained the market. Also yesterday, we heard when the MDs of the Line Trail and MRDEP delved into some of the factors that have discouraged the business, being pricing mechanism, not having an enabling environment, unfavorable policies and guidelines for investment opportunities. Now, to the panelists. I think the first question I will direct to the VP of Argos. Can you give the House an unbiased insight into the analytics of the industry? Indications of patterns in the marketplace, probably speaking about the global events and trends impacting price, product availability, supply and demand.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And it's a great pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us, and it's an honor to be part of this panel. I represent Argus, and Argus is one of the global price reporting agencies. So we're very focused on prices, and of course it's price that gives the incentive to move product from one place to the other. And Nigeria being a massive short, particularly of gasoline, means that there is a gravitational pull of product into this country, which will only be more efficient and have more clarity around it as deregulation comes through. Of course, deregulation is not an event, it's a process. We're in the middle of a major transition in the way that product is priced in this country, in the way that consumers are exposed to those international prices, and that process is far from over, as I'm sure we'll hear from my colleagues here on the panel. But just to look at the international picture, we've seen very high prices on an outright basis recently. Price of Brent crude has been flirting with $100. It's not quite reached it. It started to fall away, particularly because of a stronger dollar and because of demand in the Far East for oil not being quite what the world expected coming out of the COVID crisis. But we do have a very unsettled, unstable world. We have conflicts in Russia, Ukraine, of course. We have conflicts again in the Middle East, but worse than before in the Gaza situation. Of course, these are not oil-producing areas, particularly not Israel-Palestine, but the fear of a wider conflict is supporting some of the prices. So you could say, with prices as high as they are, this is not an ideal time to deregulate, but there'll never be a perfect time. And it's as this process comes through, as consumers get used to being exposed to these prices, both the risks, the opportunities, the hardships, and also the benefits, I think things will improve in terms of steady supplies into the country, a strong incentive for people to import, and to foster a competitive market in which price really is a strong determinant of success. Just to look at the products market, I'm sure Mariro will be looking at a lot of this in some detail soon, so I don't want to preempt too much of what she says, but the basic situation, as I said, is we have a short here in Nigeria and in West Africa in general of gasoline, and we have a long situation in Europe. Europe has to produce as much diesel as it can because it is short of that product, but it doesn't currently have the large flow of supply of diesel into Europe from Russia because of sanctions against Russia from the EU and G7 and the UK and others. So for that reason, Europe is particularly short of diesel and is working particularly hard to refine as much crude as it can. One of the reasons that prices are high is for that reason, and particularly for distillate-rich, medium-heavy crudes. And as a result of that, we have large amounts of gasoline being produced. We have a shortage of diesel in Europe, and therefore Russian diesel finding other homes, including here in West Africa and particularly into Brazil. We have more production from cheaper Russian crude in India, which means that there's a supply of Indian products, perhaps at competitive prices, coming into the market, particularly here in Africa as well. And China has been releasing product export quotas. So there's been a real realignment of global market flows, global market trends. And if we look at the relative prices of those products, it's really the middle distillates, diesel and jet, that are very expensive. And actually, currently, after this Northern Hemisphere driving season is wound up, the price of gasoline relative to those other fuels is relatively cheap. Now, you don't particularly feel that here at the moment for reasons that we'll hear about in terms of Forex and other challenges, but it is the case that gasoline is one of the weaker products currently relative to other things. I'll let my other panelists address all these questions in a moment. Just one last thing to point out is that when the product is coming here from Europe, it's important to remember how that pricing works. We have a European benchmark price we publish at Argus called EuroBob, BOB, that's blend stock for oxygenate blending. That is the core of gasoline pricing in the Atlantic Basin. It's like the Brent of gasoline. Now, traditionally here in Nigeria, another benchmark has been used, you'll be familiar with, premium unleaded from our rival, S&P Global Platts. There are differences between these prices, and if you are using the second of those without knowing the first, there's a risk that importers and ultimately now consumers are exposed to a higher price than that gasoline was linked to at the beginning of the supply chain in Europe. So I guess my message is the more transparency, the better. Nigeria is becoming a hub, particularly once Dangote is up and running. There'll be a lot more gasoline produced right here in Lagos without all of those extra costs, without all of those freight costs. And that will make this a very important hub for the region and beyond, of course. So transparency is everything. Be aware of the price at the beginning as well, the end of the supply chain, and that will make this a lot more fair, competitive, and ultimately a better deal for consumers here in Nigeria. So I'll stop there for the moment, but thank you for your question.
Thank you, James. I guess the point really is, for as long as there is a supply gap as a result of the wars, Middle East crisis, OPEC product cost, the ban in Russia, there is a tendency to see the cost of product go up, and likely to experience this in the near future. It will go, and it will keep coming back also. So we expect that the environment will continue to be volatile. Like I pointed out just now, the scenario we're experiencing, right, is creating significant gaps generally, and I think it's even worldwide. But specifically for us, the high cost, there's a significant gap between the cost of products supplied by NNPC and even that we see around the neighboring countries that are fully deregulated. There's a reality that has set in, and that is the high cost of product. Nigeria today, right, given what NNPC is doing, there is a significant gap between the pricing mechanism, and it is not unusual for us to see illegal export of such products, especially with the fuels. Now, my question will go to the MD of NTL, Mr. Lawal Sadi. Can you give us an insight into how NNPC is able to sustain this market at the current cost profile, right? I think for NTL offshore is a number 530 and X-Tank about 556 that other players don't have access to.
Thank you very much, Nike, and good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon to the distinguished panel. It's my pleasure and a privilege that I've been invited to speak. Just going straight to your question, yes, for NNPC, as of today, based on the PIA, we are suppliers of last resort. So we are supplying the market not by choice, but we are to guarantee energy security for the country. So that we are trying to ensure that we maintain. Of course, I will talk on the pricing issue, but before that, let's just look at even the flows, the way the inflows of the product, both PIA, PIB, and for subsidy, and then the after subsidy regime. We're all aware that prior to subsidy, we've been importing over 1.5 million tons per month into the country. It's quite massive. It's huge. It's huge job volume, James. Moving that product from across the country, across the world into Nigeria, and Largely that volume is being consumed, of course, in Nigeria. But again, we're all aware as well that we import for other countries across the West Africa especially. But in fact, we have it on record that even our product pre-subsidy has gone as far deep as into Sudan, Khartoum, and even into Mali, obviously because of the subsidy regime that at that time Nigeria was implementing. So really, wherever country that there is subsidy, it's not only in Nigeria, those kind of things will happen. You will see that there's always a slippage. You will see smuggling happening, especially where we are now, whereby you will see that all our neighbors at that time, there was no subsidy. So obviously that price arbitrage and the price differential really is an incentive. It attracts a lot of smuggle, I will put it, and then because of the price differential that people are enjoying. Thankfully, we have a political will. The government of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu removed the subsidy, and that singular decision really was a game changer for the entire activities on the downstream sector of the economy. Because we have seen massive drop in inflows of the import that we have been doing. Almost 50% of that import just dropped. And then even in consumption in Nigeria, we have seen that there's almost 1/3 on the evacuation side. But that notwithstanding, again, because of the price differential that is apparent in the transaction, we sell our commodity here in the local currency, in Nigerian naira, but of course the imports are all largely basis the FX, that's the basis the foreign currency. So there's been that differentials that again has been, whether some insights call it, again it's a subsidy kind of. Again, the government went now to say, okay, there should be a unification of currency. Like Nikkei, you have just made mention, yes, when that subsidy happens, some other marketers were able to import because at that time, I mean, the currency differentials was not as much as what we are experiencing now. So for us in NNPC, we have no choice. We must import to keep the energy security. It's our mandate to ensure that the country is wet. But in terms of the pricing, as it is today, because of the movement in the dollar versus the naira, the volatility in the foreign exchange, it's really creating that difficulty in seeing that the other marketers are able to import. However, I know that there's been a lot of concerted effort by the leadership level to ensure that there is accessibility to foreign exchange. The subsidy is gone. I can tell you that really. But I think one other challenge for the other marketers to be able to import is the accessibility to the FX market. So I will not be able to discuss on what is the exchange rate today, what it is, because that's the responsibility of the financial sector to define that. But I think the key challenge really for the inability of the other marketers to import is just their access to the foreign exchange. But as soon as they will have that access, then obviously whatever the price it is, because there's no subsidy anymore, so the market determines the price as it is. So thank you very much.
Daddy, I think the key highlight in your comment is really the variation in and accessibility to FX.
Exactly.
It's that simple. I would ask Mario to please sort of give us some form of guidance today as to what the landing cost of PMS could be in using the parallel market numbers?
It always depends. I mean, the market in the last couple of years it's been filled with uncertainty. So, I think price forecasters like our friends in Argos have been having a very difficult time. And uncertainties come in different ways. And we have, technology, environmental issues, geopolitical issues. But one key theme is, freight costs have been significantly, high when you compare to historical costs, and that's definitely been impacted to the price of the products that are coming into the region.
Okay.
When you think about, Africa and Nigeria have always been that region that helps solve those imbalances in the rest of the world. And, all the loans in Europe and the US come this way. And at the same time, is a region of growth and where GDP has been, improving. But in general, globally, the demand has been recovering. And finally, in 2023, we reached the pre-COVID levels, which have been impacting prices as well. And we have been suffering from tight refining capacity, which again is keeping the price and the cracks high. Fuel oil prices have been high, which is impacting bunker prices, again impacting freight. So all that is impacting on the landed prices of products in the region. If we look at also the feedstock side of things and the crude, with the distillate cracks being so high in the different pricing centers, the high distillate rich crudes differentials have been, at a premiums never seen before. But and that's again impacting, landing prices in the region. So, putting a number for me is a bit difficult because I'm sure it's going to be wrong tomorrow. But it's always, I don't think the environment is going to improve significantly to where we are at the moment, because everyone is competing for the same barrels. And until we see the new capacity of, finally coming up online, because it's not just about here we have a game changer, Dangote, but also in the Middle East we've had big refineries that we were expecting and they've been delayed. So the demand recovery have been outpacing refining product supply, which is affecting cracks and ultimately the landed prices in regions that are dependent on imports, like we are here in Africa and in Nigeria. And more importantly, I think this is happening in the short term, but in the longer term, even when we go beyond the end of the decade, things are not going to change dramatically, because Nigeria will continue to grow, Africa will continue to grow, and that's demand is going to be growing with that. So the pool of product into the region will continue even after the startup of Dangote. So that's something to keep an eye on, because the region will continue to be competing with the rest of the world for gasoline. When I would say Dangote is probably the last gasoline-oriented refinery that is going to be built in the world, and we still have over 1 billion cars in the world, and to turn that into electric cars is going to take a very, very long time. So prices will continue to be strong, and it's important to keep that into consideration.
I guess your point here is just re-emphasizing what James said earlier. You included, the vessel rates, bunkers, and pretty much telling us we are in this for quite a while. I'll direct the next question to Mr. Jude of Rain Oil. If you could give us an insight into the pricing mechanism and what you see as what can be the landing price given the effects that you are exposed to.
Basis reality. Good morning, gentlemen and ladies. Basis reality, and has been alluded here. From the FX point of view, basis sorting from parallel market, which most marketers are exposed to. Taking a look at our operational basis, Lagos, landing PMS in Lagos as of today, it will give or take around 560, 565. You take it towards Ogara end, you are approaching about 570, and towards the Calabar end, equally within that same 580 range. So basically, the challenge is within the FX. And beyond the FX too, local distribution, to the pump. We've seen a situation whereby the gas oil, the diesel cost has been, on the increase. An average price of diesel today hovering around 1,000 per liter. What that means, you transport this product to the station and you find a situation where it's highly unaffordable. In this chain, the independents has totally, I begin to see them missed from the chain, because the PMS that used to be 4,000 liters that used to be 7.5 million prior to the regulation is now about 25 million. So it's huge cost. So taking it from the depot end to the pump is a whole lot of challenge. I don't want to bore you with the road infrastructure challenge as well. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much. I will take the next question to Mr. Dapo Shegun. That's the EVP, Downstream, NNPC Limited. Now, given the discussions around with the panelists, and taking into consideration the subsidy announcement and implementation, we saw a reduction in the consumption of PMS from about 65 million liters per day to 45 million liters per day. Sadi also alluded to that. Now, with the widening gap between the NNPC cost and imports, which plus or minus could land close to 700, 800 naira, how do we ensure that the illegal export of PMS does not come back? Because the gaps seems to be widening by the day with the various activities going on all over the world.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's another version of the same question you asked Laura Sade, I'd say, and I guess it's giving you some insights into what's happening. But I'll say NNPC has a role to play. Per PIA, we're basically contractors to the ACE in the business of ensuring energy security. So we are like every other private company running an assignment for government. And in doing that, we are excellently positioned because we have a natural edge as an integrated oil and gas company. So we're not exposed to the realities of those entities that are not integrated. And so we're able to perform that role. So far, so good. And we believe that going into the future, we will continue to keep that role as long as government gives us the opportunity to do that. Now, talking about the pricing, I don't know where I really don't know anything about the numbers you alluded to. But what I do know is this: the regulators are doing everything to ensure that situation does not occur. And the midstream and downstream authority has that role to monitor and drive good behavior of all oil marketers, including ourselves, because it's basically the oil marketers that have access to the product and may be tempted to take it out of the country. So I'll leave that to the authority, and I think they're doing a good job of ensuring that isn't happening. And we also expect the borders, the gatekeepers at the borders, to do their jobs. For us in NNPC Limited, we are entirely focused on our role as contractors to the authority. And as long as we remain integrated in this business, our natural edge gives us basically the advantage to keep on doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess putting it simple is that job to ensure that we don't have the illegal export come back again is in the hands of the authority and also in the hands of the customs right at the borders. I would come to Mr. Mohammed of Northwest, the ED Northwest. You know, we did hear some speakers yesterday, especially, and they were marketers, downstream marketers. The challenges they face with importation, at the beginning of the deregulation pronouncement. A lot of marketers simply, I mean, their explanation was that the market just moved against them, given the volatile nature of whether it's FX, all right, or for those who didn't lock their cargoes at the time. Now, from a marketer's perspective, what is your experience to date, and what would you like to see going forward?
Well, if you look at the entire value chain, from where he started from in terms of products coming to the country, using the vessel, logistics, coming to, and in terms of pricing, where it comes from, because we all know that the products are imported anyway. But the finished product that we consume and use is imported. And it now coming to the country, will all seek to use to build up the costs from exchange rates, what we have to do even as of yesterday, get the product into the vessel, bring the vessels into the jetty, discharge the products at jetty. There are costs across the value chain. We build up all this. Apart from exchange, like I said, we're going to have the vessel cost, we're going to have the cost of the logistics, we're going to have the cost of storage, the cost of transportation of all these products. Now comes in, put it in the storage, that if you're able to get it, the initial value that you get from bringing the product is actually based on whether you're able to get it sourced from NNPC, because you don't have the models to bring it from importing it on your own. That is why the statistics you gave at the beginning became very valuable. So So those statistics shows that out of all the approvals that were given by government, the regulatory agencies for people to bring in their products, less than 10% were able to do that because of the cost. Which means if you bring it in, you may not be able to sell it at the open market. So for us as marketers, it's like waiting and going cap in hand to NNPC to beg for products to be able to do your business. If you don't do that, you're not going to get it. The people that did it, just like you said, were able to burn their fingers because they landed at price A and they got it. When they landed it, they got it at price A plus 1, which means the value changed. And it's not the kind of product for PMS, for instance, that you change the price like you want to. If it's AGO, you can do whatever you like with it. But for PMS, you can't do that because of the sensitivity of the product. Coupled with the fact that our employees are demanding for wage increase because of the inflation that's gone up from 22.05 to 26%. So increasing need for people to be able to use the products to go from one place to the other, which means their cost of doing business has gone up. Here you are importing product at a very expensive price, higher than what you used to do usually, yet you can't sell it like you want. First, as a business, you want to bring it as much as you want to bring it in higher volume. You had the figures and the numbers that were thrown at us a while ago in terms of what is available in the country and what you can have, which means every other product comes to the marketer. We've seen NNPC stations also not operating at some points. So if NNPC stations that are the big boys are not operating, what happens to people like us? So what we do is to shut down and wait, cap in hand, till the product comes. So the challenge today is that first we can import the product. Secondly, if they bring it in, we bring it in. The NNPC brings it in smaller volume. So what gets to us is just piecemeal, and you have to wait. Gone are the days when you ask for PFI, you get it back to back. When you put forward your request today, you wait. It's like you're on queue. When it gets to your turn, you get it. So that is the challenge of today. Unfortunately, we may have to wait for quite some time for us to be able to move forward on this. That's the position that marketers face. If you look at the marketing fora that people sit down to discuss the issue of this petroleum marketers, both at the moment level, at DAPMAN level, even at IPMAN level, how many members of these associations are functioning today? Go to Port Harcourt, Calabar, Lagos. 90% of depots are shut down, they're not operating. If you want to buy a vessel of PMS, 10,000 metric tons today, you need close to 7 billion naira to be able to do that. This time last year, you don't need up to half of that to do that. So you see what is happening. It's quite a lot of challenge, and that's the situation we face today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the insights. I understand there may be presentations. I'm not sure. Does anyone in the panel have any presentations? Okay, none. All right. So we can proceed. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. I think you highlighted, the current situation. You described the process in itself and also the impact on the business. You highlighted the need to wait. In the past, we would get your PFI and run your transactions or run your operation, all right, and your business was booming. I would again direct my next question to the MD of NNPC Trading to share with us, why this is the case and what can we do better to improve the life of business owners, those who have invested in that entire value chain, aside from what NNPC is doing, considering that the whole industry is dependent on NNPC today.
Thank you, Dike. I think first of all, what I would say is the post-regulation era has thrown us into reality. It's just a reality check now. Probably what we have seen in the past is, or what we are seeing now is there's been massive downstream infrastructure imbalances. Let me put it that way. What I mean by that is, yes, there's been huge in the past couple of years. There has been huge investments around building depots, storage, and building stations, retail sites across the country. Probably because of the excesses that we're all enjoying on the subsidy regime. So we have the reality now that with the deregulation, we have seen massive infrastructure surplus on that side. Today, the large number of depots that we have across the country, typically because of the shrinking in the volume arising because of the removal of the subsidy, so some of those infrastructure are idle. Let me just put it that way. That's what you have just alluded. And the same thing with our retail sites. We have seen a lot of retail stations springing up, and we're all aware that sometimes some of these retail sites that we have, some stations will see that for the whole of 1 year, it might only operate once, maybe during the winter season in December, and that's it. The station owner will shut down until another. So those assets now, we see them idle now, as true as it is, because the volume that we require as a country, we have seen the reality, except that now what Nick have just said, that we are seeing some, again, signs around maybe smuggling because of the price differentials again. So we are going around in cycles. So on that side, you see that obviously some of these retail sites, some of these depots that will be struggling around in sharing and rationing the volume around to go around to be able to, or everybody needs to be part of the business. On the other side, on the flip side, the deficits that we are facing in terms of the infrastructure, that's why I call it infrastructural, downstream infrastructure imbalances. That's surplus, that's deficit. The deficits we are having is our refining capacity. That's a huge deficit in our refining capacity. But thankfully, with the springing up of the Dangote refineries and other modular refineries that even NNPC is investing, you see that we'll have some domestic refining, whereby it will again change the paradigm completely. Because now, instead of we as a country being importer, will become next exporter, and that is going to happen very soon. So Dangote refinery is coming, 445,000 barrels of NNPC refinery are coming back, and then NNPC is investing into modular refineries, Ezekiel refineries, and a lot of other condensate refineries, whereby so we will have enough refining capacity that will even enable us as a country to be exporting. So, and you see, that is really changing a shift, James, if you understand with me. And I'm sure that even the reporting agencies and all the pricing agencies were working towards that, to see that we change the dynamics, we change us as a country, instead of net importer to be net exporter, as the case may be. So what I will we are canvassing and we are saying is, so marketers, we should all start to think out of the box. We should look ahead and know that this reality is facing us, and this reality is going to come as quickly as possible, so that we can take adequate position. We have all the massive, and again, one of our even shortfall or our shortcoming is the pipelines. You see, today we have to have truck out from Lagos to down to Ilela, whereas prior to now, because of the pipelines that we have, is just to flow in product from Atlas Corp. It will pass through Ibadan, Ilorin, Ore, and it goes down to Kaduna, as far as Kaduna. So it is the pains of having trucks all across the road to get in the product on the distribution side. So really, with the advent of the refineries coming back, so Dangote refinery too is a game changer. With the advent of those refineries coming in, and the real reforms that NNPC is championing, with the support of the federal government, we see in the near future, not too distant time, the entire downstream activities is going to remodel and is going to be for better. So our kind of not appeal, but as partners, I think it's important that marketers and all the players in the industry look ahead, and then we all work together and see that we invest to secure our future businesses. Otherwise, we'll be slightly left behind. And again, importantly, the whole world is going on this issue around the energy security, the energy transition rather. So energy transition again is bringing us into a limelight that we need to key into the climate change. And even in Nigeria, you can see our retail downstream arm is working on tirelessly, led by the EBP downstream, to see that we key into the CNG, the LPG vehicles, and even the renewables as much as possible. That is really going to continuously put pressure on the existing downstream infrastructure assets, especially the depots. They will continuously to be idle because the volume or the activity that those assets are doing are continuously shrinking as we are facing the reality. So it is important that we have that concept and we move along the trend so that we will not be left behind. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Sadi. The scenarios that have been described right now, all right, it's an ideal. However, based on the discussion we've had here today, we've also highlighted an imbalance, and that is in the FX. There's a major imbalance in FX. Now, NNPC has access to that, and others don't have. We talk about things around investments, even the refineries, or any other type of investment or infrastructure that can support the downstream business. From an investment perspective, and I will direct these questions again, first to the marketers, and then I would engage the EVP. How, with this imbalance, how can that promote investment to drive the business that we currently do, given the scenario that we see today? Maybe, Mr. Mohammed, you want to take this on?
What you say makes me a little bit fundamentally worried. We're talking about new investments. Marketers expected to invest in something new. Their current business is not thriving. Where are they supposed to source money from new investments? Who's going to give them the money to invest in this? If they get, banks are not even ready to give marketers loan anymore for oil and gas business. I'm sure we're aware of that in this industry. So where are you going to get money for when your current business is not thriving? But see, if the environment can be made available, look, we've seen government give money to banks to support banks to do business, to grow activities, to do things. We've seen how some of the aviation companies have been supported by government funds. Look, this business, the oil and gas, whether we like it or not, is the mainstay of our Nigerian economy today. When we're talking about energy transition, it's because the West don't have oil. That is the reality. If they have oil, they will not tell us to stop doing oil, they'll be doing something else. That is the reality of today. This is our business. These are low-hanging fruits. And this oil is going to remain for quite a long time. Forget about the fact that we are preaching green energy. Good green energy. But this is what we have. What else do we have? Oil contributes over 90% of our revenue in Nigeria. It's only about less than 10% of our GDP. So if that is the numbers that we're looking at, as an economy of the nation, good for us, we must continue. That is where we're supposed to invest heavily so that we can get production to spread out the entire country and develop the economy and have a better growth. This government promised 10% GDP. This government in power promised 10% GDP when they were coming in. As at March, we grew 3.5%. March this year, 3.5%. If you look at that 3.5% that we grew as at March, and you look at our inflation as at March, which is 22.04%, discount it with the inflation that time, and our population growth, which was 2.6%. It's negative. So what I'm saying in essence is that you don't expect marketers in a business that can grow the entire economy, that can develop this country massively, where we get 90% of our revenue, and they don't have money to grow the business. So what's going to happen to the macro economy? So my concern, or our concern as a marketer, is that we don't have money to invest in new things. We want support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So back to the EVP. My question would be, just, looking at what Sadi has said and also the feedback we've gotten from one of the marketers. In terms of reform, what kind of reforms are we looking at? I mean, Sadi did mention, there are some reforms that will be put in place. What are we looking at to actually really encourage this investment that we all keep talking about? Where are we? What direction? Where are we going? We've spoken. For me, the most fundamental at this point in time regarding the fuels, and we said we'll focus more on petrol, is this differential in effects that is only available to NNPC. We may talk about the transition, the energy transition. We may be talking about green energy, but how do we promote those who are even interested in following that path? How do we encourage them, given the scenario that we have today? What are we looking at in general?
Okay, I found that one thing I have to do repeatedly is to remind people that LMPC Limited is not government. NNPC Limited is not the regulator. NNPC Limited is a competitor to these guys. So sometimes when I have questions around what is NNPC doing to encourage, I would say we're in business to compete with other players, and if we have a competitive edge, which I had alluded to earlier, it becomes imperative for our competitors to rise up to the occasion. When we talk about support, I can tell you for a fact that businesses that don't evolve will eventually dwindle, and businesses have to continuously evaluate the landscape and make decisions, both strategic and tactical, to remain relevant. Every difficult situation most difficult situations would have a silver lining, and it's the businesses that find that silver lining that will thrive. In all of this, and I must also correct the notion that as a country we're not sensitive to the energy transition. Yes, we are sensitive to it because it's just one world, and we all have to act responsibly to make sure that that we sustain or we preserve the environment. While we're at that, we do have a huge infrastructure gap to bridge. And in doing that, we must do it responsibly. It behoves each and every one of us to commit sincerely to that. And that is what we support in NNPC Limited. We have identified natural gas as our transition fuel, and we're focusing on developing natural gas and businesses along that product. Now, talking about I can talk about the FX differential. I leave that to the central bank, and I can talk about things from the perspective of governments. We're not governments, again, I say. So I'll speak to it from the perspective of a limited liability company, which we are. And we are evolving. We are reading the business landscape. We are collaborating and partnering with others to develop condensate refineries, locating them close to gas plants for greater efficiency. We're doing quite a number of things to really embrace the new reality. And I would encourage other players in the sector to begin to think about this. When you talked about financing and raising financing for investment financing, I would say this is a time when businesses in the sector should be looking at aggregating. This is, Lawal spoke earlier about the excess infrastructure surplus. I mean, the massive infrastructure surplus. That is a reality. The fact that the depots exist does not mean that automatically the society has to create business for them. The depots need to react to the new realities. The last time I checked on depot haulage, it was, I mean, you can see it's in multiples of what's required based on current realities. So the depots, as an NPC, we're also looking for how to optimize our investments in these facilities. And I'd really encourage every player in the sector. This isn't the time to stay the same and expect that business will continue to roll in. This is the time to evolve quickly. Businesses need to be agile at this time to react to the market situation if they're going to remain viable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we should be rounding up at this time, but I would like to just pick out a few points from what the EVP has said. One key thing that came out is that NNPC2 is a business on its own, but clearly there's a competitive edge that no one in the industry can compete with. That is very clear, even from the very salient comments that were made today. Mr. James, you can, tell us from an analyst's point of view. You see data, you understand the dynamics of the industry, right? What would you say should be the way forward for this industry?
Well, if I had the answer,
you have a crystal ball.
But we've heard, I think, all sides of what is a very thorny, knotty problem here today, and some very clear positions here on the stage. As I said at the beginning, this is a process, right? We are not expecting you can, rip off the band-aid of decades of subsidy and immediately a promised land will appear where everything is fair and everything is easy. This is not going to happen. People are working through a process here, and everybody has their own interests to defend as that goes through. So it's naturally going to be a process of some difficulty. However, it is a process in the right direction because we are moving towards, not there yet, but we're moving towards a competitive market in which the people that are most efficient, the most interconnected into the global markets, and the most kind of hyper-aware of their own competition, these will be the people that succeed. Now, as Lawal was alluding to earlier, this is becoming an important, it already was, but it's becoming an ever more important hub in the world, and people are looking to Nigeria as a key destination for products, and increasingly, as some of these refinery projects come to fruition, a key source of products as well. And when you have imports, exports, strong local demand, all of these things come together to create a real important point of price discovery. And those people that are most able to be responsive to those price signals will be the ones that are most successful, I think. Now, of course, the Forex is a separate issue. We, as a price reporting agency, don't report on foreign exchange. There will have to be some kind of normalization here. Already there's been progress with the liberalization of Forex and some of the many different types of foreign exchange having been kind of consolidated and simplified. But that is a whole process which needs to come through, and I'm sure will in time. But in the meantime, if one of our ambitions as an observer of the market is to create a price reference for this location that represents fair value in the spot market here, then what's a spot market? It's the place where excess or shortage are matched to create a fair price signal that can be used then for the greater volume in the market. Most oil in the world just moves in long-term contracts, but the reason that people use an index like the ones that we and our competitors publish is because it's based on a vibrant spot market with buyers and sellers and traders in between all interacting to reach the point at which a surplus can be allocated or a shortage filled. And that's exactly what we need to see happen here. So even if prices are linked back to a European benchmark in the way that Bonnie Light prices are linked back to Brent, there needs to be some visibility in the market here. And we are very keen to be part of the process to bring that into the light so that two of your early questions were about what is the landed cost, what is the landed price of PMS. If there's an open market, it's not a mystery. There is a market, a price will emerge from the market, and an independent price assessor like us can publish that price and everybody can see it. And I think that is the point at which competition will enable this market to move to the next phase and become really a lot fairer and a lot more transparent.
Thank you. I think we are done here. We'll go into the question and answer session. But I'll make one final statement just to capture the challenges that we face in terms of the supply chain, the FX challenges, what's going on in the world, and some of what the analysts have given us, that intense competition and razor-thin margins put supply chain efficiency at the core of a profitable supply and distribution business. Without competition, there is wastage, inefficiencies, and unprofitable businesses.
My name is Tilian Mitake. I'm the Group Managing Director of Swift Oil. So my position on Downstream is connected very much with the position of CBN and the government. This is what creates drainage of Nigeria resources. If CBN merges the CBN rate with parallel rate and we have one rate, then there will be real competition. At the moment, NMPC have an edge, and I'm not blaming them that they're using it. But this is a short-sighted policy on behalf of the government and CBN, because it is subsidizing the fuel consumption in the whole West Africa. And it is not helping the Nigerian people. It will be much better if we have a competition, and if we have competition, prices may in the beginning go up, but with many players, the competition will reach the reasonable price, and eventually it will go down, and it will help. And in the same vein, the government can use the additional proceeds of crude oil sales at higher exchange rate to improve the welfare of Nigerian people, using it in infrastructure, health, education. Another point is that one of the speakers says that Nigeria is blessed and endowed with having crude oil. There is another thing that Nigeria is blessed. It's not only the people, but also Nigeria is blessed with constant sunshine, and that is a green energy resource, which is very much underutilized in Nigeria. And the reason is that also there is a subsidy in the energy, in the electricity. Thank you very much.
Just for clarity, I think two things he mentioned. One was allowing the market forces to apply, and we will attain equilibrium. All right, market may go up at the initial point, but we will attain some form of stability if we indeed allow that to happen. I think that's the first point. And the second point is saying that we have people who can drive the oil and gas space, and also we are naturally endowed with, what we call the sunshine, some form of, green energy. Thank you.
The name Chibuzo Ifani. I work for Vitol. James, this one is for you. Are you doing a price assessment for Lagos, offshore Lagos, in terms of the Dangote outputs? Thank you.
We currently publish a price for PMS delivered into Lagos. It appears in our West Africa oil report. You can pick up some free copies outside. But that is a European hub price plus our assessment of the cost of freight, which, as Marie-Ro was saying, has been very volatile recently, is a key part of the price. So that price is available. We've been publishing it since 2015. But as I've been discussing with Laurel, as I mentioned earlier, what we really want is a price based on market activity here, where people can buy, sell, bid, offer, report to an independent agency, Nigerian specification at this location, possibly at a differential to the European benchmark, in the same way that Nigerian crude is traded at a differential to Brent. And then that underlying price can be hedged, which is a crucial part, especially as one of our colleagues over here was saying, that you don't know exactly when your delivery will come. You need to be able to hedge that outright price as it fluctuates in the future. But if we have a liquid market in the benchmark itself, like Brent, like Eurobob for gasoline, then a differential that is attuned to the specificities of the market here, the location, the supply and demand, the specification, the quality. Those two elements together can work very well to create an accurate price benchmark, which then can be used more broadly by people in the market looking for a fair price. So the answer to the question is we have a proxy price for what you're talking about. We don't yet have an actual trade-based assessment. And the reason is that this market, unfortunately, is not yet in the habit of reporting its trades to a third party. Everything is very secretive, is perhaps not the not the best, most polite word, but it's certainly not the most transparent market that we look at. If you look at gasoline in Northwest Europe, where we publish our benchmark, it's a barge market in Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Antwerp, 1,000-ton clips passing here and there. Every trade is reported, every trade is published. We publish an average at the end of the day. It's entirely transparent. There's no question of who is manipulating this price, because every deal counts and every person in that market has a stake in the price and can hedge that price. So that's the kind of thing I would like to see emerge here. And when those pieces are in play, and the deregulation, liberalization of this market is a key step along that road. It's not the end of the road, but it's a very important step along that road. Then we can start to see more transparency. I know I keep saying the word, but that's the only way to get a fair price, is to have a transparent market. And then we can collect that data, we can analyze it, and we can publish a price based on real market activity at this location. So that's the ambition. I think the startup of Dangote will be key to that, because then you will have production right here, not necessarily bound to move into the domestic market. This will be a commercial refinery designed to make money, not to, save the world. And it will be selling wherever the price is right. So some of that gasoline may find its way to South Africa, or to other parts of West Africa, or even to points further afield where there are shortages. But the point is that you will have imports competing with domestic production, and whatever Dangote chooses to do with its gasoline will be key to the possibility of a reflective index for Nigeria based on the market here. And just, if I may, just one last point. Dangote is not going to be producing the same quality gasoline that you are receiving now. You are currently receiving, frankly, low quality gasoline, lower quality than we consume in Europe, lower quality than is consumed in the United States. And the only reason for that is that the specifications are more permissive here. Now, I know a lot of work is being done by the authority, by ECOWAS, and also by the Netherlands government to improve the quality of gasoline that is coming into this country. There needs to be some kind of unification around that. But again, when Dangote starts and it is producing Afri-6, 10 parts per million sulfur, super low sulfur gasoline, there will be no excuse for anybody in the world to be targeting low quality gasoline into this country. And people say, oh, well, doesn't that mean the price will go up? Remember, at the moment, gasoline in this country is priced against a high quality benchmark, even though the quality is low, right? That's another way that the people of Nigeria have been exposed to high prices for substandard material, and that is something that I hope and believe will change when you have domestic production and international standards right here in this country. So I think market transparency and improvements in quality are just around the corner, and I truly hope it comes soon.
My name is Jamil Ali from MDJI for MDPRA. My concern about the ongoing is when you say equilibrium, either in terms of forex or in terms of supply. Let's look at both. We know that to you to have a very perfect equilibrium in price, you must match your production, your real output. And we know that according to available data, about 54% of our forex is being taken out on daily basis for import. I think unless and until we are able to solve that problem of importation of fuel, the issue of having equilibrium in terms of forex, I have to postpone it to that time. And secondly, from our discussion, a lot of emphasis was made about Dangote refinery. And for you to have a balance equilibriums in the market. You must try as much as possible to avoid both monopoly and oligopoly, which you are trying to create through Dangote, because all the dependent is postponing when Dangote will come on stream. When Dangote is on stream, when Dangote is the game changer, I think even if it is the game changer, we are just creating another monopoly going out of this problem. Just as we are saying that NNPC is the main supplier, they are the energy guarantor of the country. I think when we put more emphasis on Dangote as the only sole entity that will going to solve this problem, I think we are just going to have another temporary solution against a future bigger problem. We have to look at this from this perspective. There must be a massive refinery locally from different sectors so that we come to balance this and have a real equilibrium that we're praying for. But as long as we are taking 54% our earnings daily basis out for import, forex will never be stable. And the supply of gasoline will not have its own balance as long as we are relying on one source. That will keep emphasizing both the government and the private sectors. They are key players. Everybody is making reference to Dangote. The NNPC is still there. They are making reference to Dangote. I think we are going to create a bigger problem for the future. Thank you.